This is not a story about horse racing. It's the story about a father and a son, and their love of a sport that brought them together and nearly tore them apart forever. Jeff Lukas grew up in the game of horse racing. His father, Dwayne Lukas, conditioned 23 quarter-horse champions before transitioning to thoroughbreds, where his success continued. Playing a large role in Team Lukas was his son.
11 or 12 years old, he was making observations to me about certain horses that amazed me.
Jeff was intense. He brooked no arguments. He was very much an old school imperial trainer type of guy who was determined to have things his own way and his own system within the context of being his father's assistant.
Jeff was tough and demanded us to be on our game at all times.
For me, it was like boot camp.
Jeff had a way of looking at you when you knew that he was upset.
No nonsense, detailed to a fault almost. He was tough on the riders. Jerry Bailey, Pat Day, Cordero, they still talk about the ass chewings he gave them.
I think he was very underrated probably as a horseman for the people that didn't know him. People might not understand how big of an influence he was on the Team Lukas organization.
He also had a good feel for the races. I thought he almost was better at reading the condition book, and I really mean that, than I was.
Jeff was the ultimate horseman. I think one of the best horsemen that I ever rode for. He was behind the scenes most of the time. Wayne was in the limelight, and Jeff was the one that was back there getting his fingernails dirty, and he wasn't afraid to get underneath the horse. Very good leg man. He seemed to be able to get inside difficult fillies, as winning colors was very difficult. She wasn't easy to be around, and he was able to get inside their heads.
After Dwayne Lukas went 0 for 12 at the Kentucky Derby, under Jeff's tutelage, Winning Colors, a filly, put his father back on center stage.
I have to salute Jeff, who's worked so hard. He's done a great job.
That's your son, and he went back with the horse.
Yes, he's going to stay with the horse.
Wayne Lukas called his son Jeff the best horseman he'd ever known. Wayne is still convinced, and was convinced at the time that he was working with Jeff closely, that Jeff was going to go on to break records that Wayne set.
In racing terms, father and son were 1 and 1A. They looked the same, talked the same, and shared a passion for horse racing. With Jeff leading the East Coast division, Team Lukas began a national expansion across the country.
It's a very organized system, very laid out, and he was in charge, and he had a clear-cut way that he wanted to do things, and you were to follow those things, and you know, he expected you to do it right and made sure you did.
And the Arlington Million 9 is now history.
We expanded very quickly. We were Dwayne off the plane, you know, and run them all across the country. Jeff had a remarkable feel for saying, you know what, we need to run this horse in the sapling and skip the champagne, or we need to run this one here or run there. He placed them beautifully. When you expand, there's always, well, I hired you, I'd like to have the horse where you are. With Jeff, I didn't have to worry about that.
Jeff Lukas was instrumental in the extraordinary success of Team Lukas. They amassed victories in the Triple Crown and Breeders' Cup, collecting multiple Eclipse Awards along the way. And he found happiness off the track with wife Linda and their children, Brady and Kelly. But on December 15, 1993, after 15 years dedicated to horse racing, regularly working 7 days a week from sunup until sundown, a loose horse named Tabasco Cat would change Jeff Lukas's life forever.
All of a sudden, we hear a lot of screaming and yelling and a big commotion and see that we've got a loose horse.
The phone rang, so I went to the office and I said, Jeff, you better get some guys and catch him. So Jeff stepped out on the road and he come running as hard as a horse could run. He must have been going 40 miles an hour. He veered to the left, the horse veered to the right.
He hit me, lifted me up off the ground and up over backwards. And when I landed, my head slapped against the hard dirt ground, loud enough to where they said it sounded like a gunshot.
He was out instantly. I was less than 20 feet away. I hollered at the exercise girl. Colleen was there. I said, call 911. I knew he was hurt because his eyes were rolled back in his head and he was unconscious. Paramedics came instantly. They were, you know, the ambulance was right down there at the quarter pole at Santa Anita.
They check me and say they're not waiting for the ambulance, that I need to be helicoptered to the hospital immediately. I'm flown to the roof of Huntington Memorial Hospital in Pasadena. They take me in. The doctor that was there that day, Dr. William Caton, one of the leading neurosurgeons in all of California, attends to me.
When I first saw him at Huntington Memorial Hospital, Jeff was comatose, he was unresponsive, and showed signs of a very severe injury. And we literally had to use every possible means to save his life.
They said it was very severe, that we had some serious problems.
Word spread about that accident very quickly.
I flew out there that night, and his wife said it was real bad. She said, you should come out here because you might not make it.
First couple of days, it was really touch and go. We were having a meeting in a conference room with Dr. Kate, and the nurse rushed in and she said, we're in trouble.
He showed signs of being on the verge of dying. And I remember I took the last couple drops of fluid out of his ventriculostomy. I did some quick manipulations with the respirator and jumped his respiratory rate up very high. We elevated the head of his bed briefly to try to get a little more fluid out, and we got him through. To this day, I'm still amazed that we got him through that episode, because I thought I was going to have to go back and tell Wayne and Linda that he had passed away.
For 2 weeks, we didn't know if he was going to make it to the next day.
When I went in there, he had tubes, and he was hooked up to every kind of monitor and everything that you could imagine. It was just, I mean, it made you drop to your knees when you got out of there, go to praying.
It was very heartwarming to see, you know, the people that you really love and care about were there. There's no question about that.
I spent a lot of time going in and out of there. It was, you know, it was emotional because I was very, I don't know, I felt indebted to Jeff because he taught me a lot.
And those were real tough days. The 20 or 30 or 40 days of the coma were the hardest.
When I finally make my first flinch, it was a miracle to everybody in the hospital. And when I was finally able to come to, I obviously couldn't get out of bed.
You start to get optimistic, and then you go months later to where you can put him in a wheelchair and put him out on the patio, and then you realize that things are not right. The therapy was brutal. Brutal. To watch a all-state football player struggle to roll a ball from me to you.
But Jeff Lukas persevered, and after weeks regaining his strength at the hospital, through the help of owners Bob and Beverly Lewis, Jeff was admitted to Casa Colina, a premier rehabilitation facility in Pomona, California. He would spend months there working to reclaim his life.
Exercise class, exercise hour with bicycles, treadmills, safety walks, going to classes to work on my memory. And little by little, those things were important, and they did work.
When he was trying to walk, you know, between those bars, they would say, that's enough, and he would go another 3 feet, you know. He always did more than he was asked.
Without having that facility, I do not believe I could have recovered in the manner I did without having those daily classes.
At the track, D. Wayne Lukas and his staff sought to maintain the Team Lukas standard of excellence. But Lukas was not only missing a chief assistant, he was missing his son.
You know, it was a very troubling time for everyone in the organization. I remember talking to Wayne, and he said, you know, do what you have to do, take care of the horses. You know, I'm going to have to step aside here a little bit, and, you know, won't be as available as usual. The one thing that I've always said about Wayne is I've never been around an individual that handles adversity as well as he does. And he's just that personality that you can't keep him down.
If everybody had to be strong, I had to be strong. I felt that, you know, that if I showed any weakness, we were really in trouble.
Tabasco Cat takes down deep.
While Jeff recuperated, Tabasco Cat proved just as tough on the track as off, earning a spot in the 1994 Kentucky Derby. His father addressed the unenviable position as trainer to the horse that almost killed his only son.
I called the staff together right after the accident, and I'm talking about while Jeff was still in a coma. And I said, look, let's not penalize the horse. So I just want him to go out there and do it on his own merits. On the other hand, if he wants to redeem himself, it's all right with me.
Tabasco Cat finished 6th in the Derby, but he captured the Preakness.
Tabasco Cat, trained by Wayne Lukas, winning it by 3 parts of a length and winning it for Jeff.
And went on to win the Belmont Stakes.
We have Jeff Lukas on the telephone from California. There, Jeff?
Yes, how are you doing?
Can you put into words your feeling of this whole series of events, almost being killed by Tabasco Cat, and seeing this horse come back and win the Preakness and the Belmont? Is there any way to put that into words?
Well, it was a big effort again today. The Preakness was a great race. So was watching the Belmont on TV today. The horse has been very game both times, and we're very happy for both the owners, Mr. Young and Mr. Reynolds, and I'm sure they've enjoyed it both times, and it was very, very enjoyable to watch.
Okay, when are we going to see you back at the track?
Start back at the end of the month, the 27th of this month. So we're going to start working back into it, and something to very much look forward to.
The whole racing world can't wait for that day.
Jeff eventually moved back home, while still attending classes at Casa Colina during the day, and he looked forward to returning to the track and his old way of life.
I feel good. I feel that I'm capable of making the physical response, and therefore I want to do it and have the job with the income and the responsibility back to step forward and move on, through the thoroughbred industry.
On December 15th, 1993, Jeff Lukas, the only son of the most successful trainer in North American history, was run over by Tabasco Cat in the barn area at Santa Anita. For a month, he lay between life and death, comatose and unresponsive. He would live, but his life would never be the same.
You have one son, and he's a good one. And you are living through that person. Only a parent can relate. Our careers, my careers, his career is going great, rising up and beating up on everybody and enjoying it together. You just can't hardly describe all of a sudden, just in a few minutes, how the whole thing just turns on you and changes.
Working for his father, Jeff's success was defined by his determination and strength. They were the same 2 factors which would define his success during his rehabilitation work.
Now, we're not talking about a couple of months here. We're talking about a long time.
You can't take things for granted. You've got to stay focused, determined, set goals, and work hard to reach them.
We tided him through that first tough week, but after that, he did it with his determination and hard work.
2 years after the accident, the racing community rallied around Jeff with a tribute to courage that raised over $200,000 for Casa Colina.
Jeff and I walked over in 1988 in the Kentucky Derby. And he was so instrumental in winning colors as winning of that race. And that particular day we walked over together, and I was never prouder. And then in 1995, this year, we had the opportunity to stand on that place that everybody wants to be in horse racing, on that little white stand in the infield of Churchill Downs, and share that moment again. And those were proud moments. But I'm never proud of them. Tonight.
Tonight is called a tribute to courage, but I've been thinking in my mind, I'll call it a tribute to success to Casa Colina. That's what it's been for me, and again, I say thank you very much.
Jeff returned to the track, but the effects of that fateful day had taken its toll.
Dr. Caton, sat me down on times and he said, this is going to be a lifestyle change, for you and for him.
Remember me? Yeah. It was quite a change, without a doubt. I mean, I never had a day off. At one point, I went 8 years in a row without a day off. And then after the injury, couldn't work. And when I was allowed to go back to the barn, only on a limited basis, only 5 days a week, and couldn't do the usual things, not only physically, but couldn't even attempt it. It would be dangerous for me to try to do what I did before, handling those horses, riding them. I didn't have the coordination, the balance, the eyesight. I didn't have these glasses before then, the hearing aids, all the physical things, the balance. I was an athlete all my life, but all those things were physically eliminated after the injury. Bunker?
It's sad because I really think, had that not happened, he would be one of the leading trainers in the world, if not the leading trainer.
6 months before he had an accident, I was very close. We were like brothers, and he asked me that he was thinking about going on his own.
As hard as it would have been to leave his father, he certainly was more than capable, and had he hung up his shingle, he'd have a stable full of horses to train.
There was no doubt his star was rising fast. He would have been, I think, the heir apparent to whatever legacy we're going to have in this business.
The accident not only took a toll on Jeff's health and career, his marriage suffered as well.
When a person has a serious brain injury, it affects not only the person, but his wife, his loved ones, his parents. And after you have a serious injury, virtually everyone has serious injury, has a little subtle personality change.
He said that in 87% of these cases, on a young marriage like that, it's going to be very hard on Linda, and bless her heart, it was.
I'm divorced now, and it all happened after the injury.
Jeff left California shortly after and worked for a time at a Florida farm. When the farm was sold, he returned to the Lukas stable and the site of their greatest triumphs. But instead of riding alongside his father, Jeff was saddled to an office chair behind a desk.
Tried to work in a different role to help him, bring the stable back up a little bit. But it just didn't work out. Not blaming him at all. But it's just something I tried, and I had hoped it would come true, but it didn't.
I don't know if it's because of our background or his background and what we had before the accident, but he tried to keep up. I think it bothered him that he wasn't quite able to. I'd leave at 3:30 in the morning and be at the barn at 4. He'd go because he couldn't drive. He wasn't going to be locked up in the house here until I got home. It was hard on him a little bit.
I thought about, well, what could I do other than what I did before? What positions or jobs could I have in racing to be involved without doing the actual physical hard work of the horse training, the barn area thing? Well, there were no opportunities that I could come up with that were available for me.
Once the crown prince of horse racing, Jeff Lukas now lives in a place where horses are just used for transportation. He works for a bank in the small town of Atoka, Oklahoma, a town whose population of less than 3,000 is nearly identical to the number of horses present at Santa Anita that fateful day.
I extremely like it here. It's not the big city atmosphere, which I do not need anymore. Safe, quiet, small town is what I like. And good people. The thing that impresses me the most is just the nice friends, quality people, quiet atmosphere. At this point, I don't plan to move again in my life.
As a result of the accident, Jeff Lukas lost a career in racing, and Wayne Lukas lost his most trusted assistant. But in return, both father and son found what was missing from their lives.
He's friendlier, he's more caring. I don't think we told each other we loved each other enough, before the accident. Now it's easier. We were so intense on you know, what we were doing. If I had to do it over again, I probably would have. I mean, we never went fishing together or never went to a movie together. We went to a ball game or something. But you know what? I really didn't have that buddy-buddy relationship that probably I would have done if I'd done it over again. When, you know, I was so intent on my career when he was growing up, and he was such a part of it that he became my partner more than my little boy.
I look back at that and think that I was too consumed with the horse business that I didn't spend enough time. I feel like I'm closer to my mother now than I've ever been in my life, and without a doubt I am. But I look back and think, why wasn't I like this before? Because I was too non-stop work, go to the barn, race, fly here, go there. Too much doing that, thinking about the horse business than I should have been spending time with my family and concentrating on family and friends. I have more closer friends in life right now after the injury than I ever did before. That's something that really comes out after an injury like mine. You find out who your real friends are.
He's not training, you know, the best horses in the world. He's enjoying each day. And I don't know if he was enjoying those days as much as he should have been.
He is more relaxed and not as intense and not as you know, stiff, and he's more fun to joke with and all, but you know, he's just not the same person because of his injuries.
I don't think really any of us grasped how much it was going to change his life. Having known Jeff then and know Jeff now, it's remarkable that he's achieved what he has since then.
Here's one of the things I'm most proud of in all of the racing career with the win pictures and everything is that crew of assistant trainers, Todd Pletcher, Karen McLaughlin, Mark Henning, Dallas Stewart, all worked under me as assistants in the East Coast Division. When they came to work, they were just ready to start, ready to learn. They were all hard workers.
He was a tremendous influence, not only on the organization, but all of us guys that worked for him.
15 years since the day of the accident, Jeff Lukas has come to terms with the events of the day that changed his life forever.
I can't be miserable thinking about that horse, that incident. You know, there's always that saying, if you could ever change one thing in your life, what would it be? Well, no doubt what the answer would be. But I'm not going to just keep thinking about that one moment and just be constantly miserable the rest of my life. I'm not back to where I was, and I never will be. But I'm happy where I'm at, the decisions I've made, and to slowly, step by step, to get back and be doing things again after what I've gone through. I'm not going to sit and blame that horse for that one day.